First, I want to introduce myself. I am Thomas Farrington, the founder and president of the Prostate Health Education Network. I'm also an 11-year prostate cancer survivor, and I've seen prostate cancer all of my life. I watched my grandfather, who was his oldest grandson, and we were very close. I watched him talk about bone pain in his leg for a long time, and he didn't understand what that was. It was prostate cancer, and he eventually died from prostate cancer. And that was my father's father. And I watched my mother's father go through a similar process and die from prostate cancer. Then I watched my father die from prostate cancer. And I have one sister and one brother-in-law. And this is an interesting story because when I was in treatment for prostate cancer in Atlanta, Georgia, my brother-in-law was living there, so he began to have a spike in his PSA, and he had a biopsy, and the biopsy came back negative. And so we celebrated that, but that was a false negative. And so he was diagnosed with metastatic prostate cancer years later, and he died from prostate cancer. So the men in my life, other than my two sons and my two grandsons, the men that I love most in life, died from prostate cancer. This is a disease that I'm all too familiar with. It is a disease that I despise. And when I was diagnosed, and I set about learning about it and decided that I was going to do my best to eliminate this disease or reduce death and suffering from it. So that has been my mission for a number of years. And I founded the Prostate Health Education Network in 2003. And since 2005, we have hosted the African American Prostate Cancer Disparity Summit here on Capitol Hill. Our first few years, we held both days here at the Raven House office building. And beginning in 2008, one session became an official session of the CBC Annual Legislative Conference, and we now hold, we've held one session in the Capitol building and one in the Convention Center. So we've really partnered with the members of the CBC, and this has been done under the sponsorship of Congressman Gregory Meeks, a lot of great support from my good friend, and Congressman Ed Towns, and Congressman Towns and I went to the same school together, North Carolina A&T, and so did all his family and much of my family. So we worked together over many years, and I'm very thankful for Congressman Towns' support and helping us arrange this meeting today. What we're here to talk about today is a ruling, a draft recommendation that kind of have us all on edge. Because on October 7th, 2011, the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force shocked the medical community, along with prostate cancer survivors and advocates, by issuing this draft recommendation. The USPSTF recommends against prostate-specific antigen-based screening for prostate cancer. This is a grade D recommendation. This recommendation applies to men in the U.S. population who do not have symptoms that are highly suspicious for prostate cancer, regardless of age, race, or family history. And the reason I gave you a bit about my background is that of the men in my family that are alive, I'm the one that detected prostate cancer using PSA tests. The men that I talked about in the past all detected it through symptoms. So I know that detecting prostate cancer after symptoms, in too many cases, cancer has spread, and it can lead to death. So one of the things that we've seen since the advent of the PSA test, since the early 90s, is a very successful effort against prostate cancer. And I think many of you may have seen this chart, where the declining rate for, this is for black men. You can see we still have a very high disparity. And you may have it, you have this in your book, but the death rate from prostate cancer has declined 40% over that period. And that, I think, is among the very best mortality reductions in for any type of cancer. So that is success. You know, you can't think of success much greater than that. And however, what I believe And what most of the medical experts for prostate cancer feel is that chart that shows the decline would turn around and begin to go back up. And this is something that certainly we stand against because it's not in the best interest of men, especially those men at high risk for the disease. So what we wanted to do with the Rally to Live is to really to inform and educate our leaders about this issue. It's important that you know, and it's important that you understand why we are against this recommendation. And it's important that you join with us because what parties are doing that have had an ideological opposition to screening for years, this just didn't happen. This ideological slant has been there for a long time. What they are doing is trying to say, paint everybody, all the urologists, all the advocacy groups, as being somewhat evil because they may be making money off treating prostate cancer. And since they're so close to the situation, they can't step back objectively and look at it. In reality, if you look at the data that the task force has used, in my opinion, they've taken a very biased approach to the interpretation of that data. And we'll talk about that a little later. So it's important, especially for black men and other high-risk men, that the data that they use that did not include a representative number of African Americans be open to the public for review and comment. And there needs to be an understanding of how this task force came up with a recommendation against PSA screening for men regardless of their risk level. This is kind of unheard of, you know, because when you talk about the AUA, when you talk about the other organizations, they always cite and make provision for men at high risk for prostate cancer. So that's what we're going to try to educate and inform you about today. And again, we're going to ask you to support us because we can't let this go down this way. There will be too many deaths and too much suffering.